Good evening and welcome to Sporlitiks, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican. Keith, I don't know, he's incognito, the constitutional conservative. Stephen, the independent thinker. And my cousin, Todd. We've got a lot for you for the show tonight. Final hours of voting in the Georgia Senate runoff. Russell Wilson becoming the Broncos disaster has turned him into NFL punching bag. Just today, 17 criminal charges were brought against the Trump organization, and they stuck. The organization has been convicted of criminal tax fraud. Yahoo says Ronaldo's replacement, 21-year-old Gonçalo Ramos, propels Portugal into the quarterfinals in the World Cup. New York House of Representatives Hakim Jeffries plays down chances of the Democrats voting for a GOP compromise speaker over McCarthy as Arizona Republican announces his run for Speaker of the House, complicating McCarthy's path. College football power rankings after conference championship week. We'll talk about that. Punchbowl News says it's December 6th. Today is Tuesday, December 6th, and the government runs out of money in 10 days. Can you imagine that? Billion-dollar government runs out of money in 10 days? Senior lawmakers in both parties have been trying to cut an agreement for a year-long omnibus funding package, yet they remain tens of billions of dollars apart, especially on non-defense spending. Around 10 of the women accused, or who accused Deshaun Watson of sexual misconduct, attended his Cleveland Brown debut versus Houston, an attorney says by CNN's Alaa Elassar. The NDAA, do you know what that is? It's the National Defense Authorization Act. President Obama made it into law. The Pentagon policy bill, which is passed every year for 6 decades, is also a real mess at the moment. Decisions they will make, like the Safe Banking Act, which would allow banks to handle cannabis, get it, marijuana-related business, has been a top priority for lawmakers in both parties. A provision that would cancel the vaccine mandate for members of the military. So this is in it. So the mandate that says members of the military must take COVID vaccine, they're trying to cancel that in this new NDAA. And the Electoral Count Reform Act. The bipartisan electoral reform bill is also in the mix, and lawmakers feel like it needs to get done this year. A COVID resurgence prompts new CDC mask guidance for Long Island and parts of New York City. And then tomorrow, which a lot of people aren't talking about, the Supreme Court. Did you know they're considering limiting judicial scrutiny in U.S. elections? And it makes the Supreme Court the one and only decider of state legislators' decisions when it comes to elections, giving them a lot of power. So if the state decides that they don't want to accept an election, they won't have the right to do that. The Supreme Court will. 45% of public schools had at least one teacher vacancy this fall and more if we can fit it in. First up, the Commanders and the New York Giants. Stephen, what was going on with that tie score 2020?
Redskins had to go down or go up to New York and play a game which they may have lost because it's hard to play at someone else's place. They ended up tying, which is better than a loss. And now they're off for a week. And then guess who they play when they come back from their bye? All rested and happy. They play the Giants again at home, which should be a win. It should be an easy win because the Eagles are going to play the Giants this week, and they're going to beat the hell out of them so bad. that they might not even have any players to put on the field to play against the Redskins. It's looking pretty good for my Washington team right now. Of course, I'm also with the Raiders now, but you know what? I've been a Washington Redskins fan longer than most people on this show has been alive, and it's really nice to see them have a lot of success this year after everything that's been so bad, and with the horrible ownership and everything that's gone wrong. It's really nice to see them succeed, and it's really nice to see some guy like Heineke come out there who's just a normal guy, just somebody we can relate to, who really tries hard and really loves playing, and reminds me of Brett Favre, and that's his favorite player. It's nice to have him out here for us to really just give it everything he has. It doesn't even matter. He'll be dragging a leg or dragging his arm. It doesn't matter if he's beat up. He gives it everything he has, and that's all we can ask for. He's not Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, the GOAT, or Aaron Rodgers, but he does as best as he can do, and that is very inspiring for the rest of the team. It takes us a long way. He doesn't have to be the best. We may have somebody on the bench, Wentz, who may be technically better than him, but he doesn't inspire the team the way Heineke does. So it's great. It's been a great year. If we don't ever win another game, it's been a great year. They far surpassed anything I thought they were going to do. And overall, this has been one of the best NFL seasons I've ever seen. So I don't have any.
Do you want to talk about what exactly happened with your team?
Well, they tied
Sunday.
The Giants.
How do you tie the Giants?
They ended in a tie. Well, they were behind, and in the last couple minutes, they tied the game up, and then they had to go into overtime, and nobody could score after that. And that's fine with me because a tie is better than a loss. They almost lost the game. So
where does that put them in the NFC East?
What?
I mean, where does that put them in the NFC East besides being behind the Eagles?
Well, they're in third place, and I have nothing against the Eagles. I have nothing against the Eagles. But what it does is it gives them they can still make the playoffs if they can win this week and a couple more games. They can make the playoffs, and there's nothing wrong with that. If the Redskins,
you mean a wild skin? They can make the playoffs in a wild skin berth.
Yeah, a wild card. If they can get a wild card, because other teams are losing, if they can, then anybody can have a chance to win. They have a great defense, and we're getting Young back. Maybe the 2 weeks from now, or maybe a little later. But we have a great defense that's solid right now, top 10 defense, and we have an offense that has weapons that the Giants don't have. They have Barkley, but we have 2 great running backs and 3 great receivers, including Terry McLaurin. They call him Scary Terry. We have a lot of weapons that can hurt any team that we play. So if we make the playoffs, we could be okay. It's just coming on to matchups and who you have. So this Washington team is formidable, and there's nothing. They're no slouch. People have got to pay attention to them right now because anything can happen. And I do believe 100% they will beat the Giants at home in 2 weeks because the Giants will be beat up by your Eagles.
You got that right. But I want to share my screen and show you this article talking a little bit about what the players thought about the Giants and that tie. It said it's not a loss. It's not a win either. I think you understand that part of it, but just disappointed that we couldn't have played better, couldn't have taken advantage of some situations and won the game. That's the disappointing part. It's not a loss. I think we understand that. We look to improve going forward. And this was by Daniel Jones.
Right. Because they're at home, and he's upset because they should have won at home. And then in 2 weeks, we play them at our house. So, but the fact that they couldn't even beat us at home is terrible for them. So this is why this is a win for the Washington Redskins. It's not it was actually a loss for the Giants. So when they come to our house, We're going to tear them up. And you know what's really cool? Finally, we're going to pack the stand, not with Giant fans, like what usually happens. We're going to have almost 100% Redskin fans that are going to be there, and they're going to rock it. The Giants players are not going to be able to hear anything. Their teeth are going to rattle because it's going to be so loud. And this is why it turns out very nice for the Washington team.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
So that just sounds like, I'm sorry, that sounds like a bunch of fluff of, yeah, we're going to win, but it's not talking about how you guys are really going to get to, where you need to go to not end up in a tie to make better chances.
We have a better team. We have a better team than the Giants, which is evidence is they couldn't beat us on their own turf. If they were better than us, they would have beat us. Okay. Now they come to our turf and we're going to destroy them. And another thing is with help is they're going to be worn out and beat up because the Philadelphia Eagles are going to destroy them and they're going to hurt them. They're going to hurt them. They're going to hurt different players. There's nothing they can do. Barkley is playing really horrible lately, and the Eagles are going to stop him. They got Sue. I can't think of his first name, but they have Sue, and they brought in another guy, and they have a good defensive line that's going to stop Barkley. And they have no receivers in New York. They have no receivers. Y'all are going to tear them up. My only thing is I'm scared that Jalen Hurts and the offense is going to have to back off because they're beating them so bad. They're going to be like the Bad News Bears, the New York Giants. They're going to destroy them.
That's a good thing. Thank you for saying that.
And then y'all will still only have one loss after this week.
That's right. So let me show you my screen. Deshaun Watson. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, let me make it a little bit bigger because Todd always says he can't see it. It's making me get the screen. Okay, Deshaun Watson, around 10 of the women who accused Deshaun Watson of sexual misconduct expected to attend his Cleveland Brown debut versus Houston. How do you think that game went?
Well,
how do you think he played on that game?
He was very rusty, Stacey. It didn't matter who was in the crowd because 10 people are not going to overcome 50, 60, 70,000 people. That didn't bother him. He's very rusty. He hasn't played in a year and a half maybe, and he's not in sync with the team at all. It's going to take a little while, but eventually it's really going to help Cleveland to have him there because he's a top 5 quarterback. Maybe not this year, but obviously next year. But it may help him a little bit.
They said he got a mix of boos and cheers for the first regular season game. They said that Watson returned to the field after 11-game suspension without pay. They felt it important to make clear that they are still here and that they matter. I was proud of them for that. And I guess they're talking about that's the lawyer representing the accusers attending the game. Told CNN in a statement, I have made that opportunity available to them. I haven't been to a Texans game in many years, but because they're going, I will go too. Cousin Todd, what was the point in having those women there? And who won that game?
I don't know what the point of having those women were. I find that people do that to try to make a statement. Like, for example, Donald Trump had Clinton's accusers at a debate, which I thought was so...
it worked too, because I think that people saw the accusers, that it reminded people of what he was accused of, and Hillary Clinton didn't win.
I don't think it had anything to do with those women, because Hillary Clinton wasn't accused of raping those women.
Her husband was.
Her husband was. So, what happens to being known by association?
She stood by her man after he raped those women.
Wait a minute now. He didn't rape those women.
How do you know? Were you there?
Were you there?
Yes.
Who did Donald Trump rape?
Nobody.
His wife says otherwise.
Are
you married to him?
His wife said he raped her?
Yes, ma'am.
You can't rape your wife.
Oh, do you see this? This is why he's a Republican. I'm so glad you said that. How typical. These are Trump supporters saying you can't rape your wife. You own her, so you can beat her. This was the
No, I didn't.
law
So you
before
think having sex with a
before
woman is the
70s.
same thing as beating a woman?
You
So
own this woman.
No, you
This
don't
is
own
what
anybody. Nobody
of
owns anybody. But if you have sexual
my
relations
point
with your wife, you're not raping her. You're having sex.
again.
And if she doesn't
Now,
want it, then it's not
now
cool.
Stacy, you're a Republican, aren't you? Now,
I'm not a Republican.
let me ask you, Republican, do you, do you think you can rape your wife? That would be yes or no, and then explain.
Anybody can claim rape,
Do you
Todd,
hear this?
even
Do you
if
hear
it
this,
doesn't
Trump
happen.
supporter? This
Anybody
is what
can claim
America
rape,
has
even if
come
it doesn't
to
happen, Todd.
now that Trump was president.
So I think that yes, someone can be an aggressor in a physical relationship. Yes.
Wait, what kind of white Republican crap are you spewing here? I said, can a woman be raped by her husband?
Yes.
He just said,
Yes.
oh, thank you, white Republican.
Yes, but do you really believe
I'm
Donald
not
Trump
white.
raped
You
his
can look
wife?
at my skin. I'm not white. What are you
Do you
talking
really
about?
believe Donald Trump raped his wife?
I don't know. I want to move on.
No, I do
don't
not.
wanna move
No,
on.
of course you do, because you're a Republican. Now, this is crucial. This way of thinking is what is bringing America down. Did you hear him say, you can't rape your wife? You can rape your wife. If you have sex with her and she doesn't want you to, that is called
Yes, I understand
rape.
that, but I don't think Donald Trump was capable of
No,
raping
you didn't
anybody.
say that.
If
Now
Donald Trump's wife,
now you're
if Donald Trump's
changing what
wife
you
did
just
not want to have
said.
sex with him, he would have paid somebody else to have sex with him.
Oh gosh, you know so much about your lover, don't you? So
No,
now listen.
He paid that other woman like $700,000 to have sex.
I'm not interested. I want to stick with the facts. His ex-wife
Your
said,
facts.
What? No, this is the deceased facts.
This is what she said.
All right, move on. Time is a moving.
Do you hear him say this is what she? So every rape victim, oh no, she said that, but he didn't say that. This is what America has come to. When you have crazy people like Stephen, because Donald Trump was president, they have license to say exactly how they feel.
Well, everyone has license to say exactly how they feel.
Oh, no, they used to be smart enough to be quiet about it. Now they say it out loud. This is why you have the Supreme Court saying abortion is no longer legal in the United States. Right after they said
did not say abortion is not legal in the United States.
Of course they did.
No, of course they did not.
Job by
they said
lying.
It goes to states. It's states' rights.
Of course they got this job by lying to America.
You're severely uneducated on the subject.
And you are.
What they said was it goes to the states. It goes to the states.
It didn't go to the states.
It does. The Supreme Court did not say that abortion is illegal.
So this is why,
Cousin Todd, this is why you're not an independent thinker. You can't think for yourself.
So anyway,
they said it on The View, and you believe it.
Oh gosh, you believe everything Donald Trump says.
You believe everything.
This is why you cannot rape your wife. If you're married to her, you can't rape her. Come on, everybody knows that.
I'm saying Donald Trump never raped his wife.
Let's just close this out.
Never proved that Donald Trump.
Were you there?
Okay, I want to close out this screen and just say that the Cleveland Cavaliers beat, who did they play? The Houston Texans. That's all I wanted to do. All right, thank you. We're going to move on. I wanted to wait until Aguna came back on so we could talk about the great Eagles and World Cup. So let's move on to the Trump organization.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. Look, that was just your boyfriend 5 minutes ago when you said he did not rape his wife.
Because it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. This has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
The jury, let me share my screen again, as usual. The jury in New York found the Trump organization guilty of 17, all counts, of tax fraud. all counts, 17 counts of tax fraud. They found them guilty. Can you? I can't believe it. Well, I can believe it.
I can.
I can believe it. But the question is, do you see this? It says Trump organization found guilty.
I can believe it.
So how can the former president have run an organization that doesn't pay his taxes, even though he wasn't charged in the felony or scheme?
Right. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
What does it have to do with? What does it have to do with?
It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. If it did, they would have him there as well. It doesn't have anything to do with him. It's a company that he's involved with, and anybody can go after a company. What state was this, Stacey?
New York, and it's a 15-year.
Stacey, was it New York?
New York. Can you hear me?
Then Stacey, who runs New York, Stacey? Who runs New York? People who hate Donald Trump.
So,
Stacey, you know what it is.
Let's look at the article.
You know what it is.
Let's look what the article says. The article says business records connected to a 15-year scheme to defraud tax authorities by failing to report and pay taxes on compensation for top executives. The Trump Corporation and Trump Payroll Corporation were found guilty on all charges they faced.
Of course they were. Because where are the judges? Who are the judges in New York, Stacey? They're all Democrat.
That has nothing to do with
it. Has everything to do with it.
It has nothing to do
everything to do with it.
It has nothing to do with
New York is a left-wing state.
Stephen, you got to let me finish. I'll let you finish. It has nothing to do with the left-leaning state. It says business records connected to a 15-year scheme to defraud tax authorities by failing to report and pay taxes on compensation for top executives. The Trump Corporation and Trump Payroll Corporation were found guilty on all charges they faced. Donald Trump and his family were not charged in this case, but the former president was mentioned repeatedly during a trial by prosecutors about his connection to the benefits doled out to certain executives, including company-funded apartments, car leases, and personal expenses. The organization could face a maximum of $1.6 million in fines.
Nothing.
When sentenced in mid-January, it's not at risk of being dismantled, and there's no mechanism under New York law that would dissolve the company.
Stacey, $1.6 million in fines is nothing.
So Keith,
do you hear this idiot?
So Keith, I want to know.
You sound completely crazy, Steve.
I want to know from Keith. Excuse me.
You used to say Trump was a thief, a criminal. You didn't know why they would vote for him to be president.
Trump is the cleanest politician that has ever lived.
Hey, Stephen.
Trump is the cleanest politician.
You cannot do this and then do this. You said, why did they vote for him? He's
let Keith speak.
He's crooked.
Todd, you're wrong.
That's what you said.
Todd, you're wrong again. You ought to be used to it. Now let Keith talk.
I'm wrong about what?
You're wrong about everything.
You said he's a thief.
Go ahead, Keith,
he's dumb. You said people that vote for him are dumb. This is right after he said, I could shoot somebody in Middle Fifth Avenue and not lose a vote. You said he's calling them dumb. He's calling them stupid.
Keith.
And they are stupid if they vote for him.
I know you're not
That's
rude,
what
but
you
interrupt
said,
him.
Stephen.
All right,
I've said the same crap for 18 years now.
That's what you said.
To have a president of the United States run a corporation that was found guilty on 17 charges of tax fraud says what about his leadership?
Nothing.
Well, you just said that Trump was not personally charged. In other words, he didn't have anything to do with that. That was a company
His own company.
Why wasn't he charged?
Okay, so why is it that he was not charged?
Why?
Okay, good question.
We read that.
Because he's smart enough to let you flunkies take the fall.
Why are you? Why is the media spinning this if it's Trump that was personally charged? You act as if Trump was personally involved in tax fraud.
Listen,
is it true or not? Was Trump convicted or not?
No. Because Trump is not a lawyer. Trump is not an accountant. He gets flunkies like you people to do his dirty work.
Again,
and
was
so
Trump charged or not?
This is why his accountant has to go to jail Do you
Well,
think
was
his
Trump
accountant,
charged or not?
Nobody's going to jail, Todd.
Thank you.
Trump's accountant,
Nobody's
is,
going to jail.
oh
Trump
gosh,
charged or not? This is
Okay.
a biased court. All
a bias. Now it's a
Democrat-
biased court.
New York.
Democrat
Court.
jury, I guarantee you. We'll find out, Stephen. I'll do my
So
research.
let me ask you, Stephen and Keith, you talk about a biased court.
Yeah.
Charges are charges.
Anybody
People
that
have to
votes
file
against Trump is biased and wrong and out to get him,
Todd,
right?
can I say something, Todd?
Cult.
So
He's a cult leader, and you
Please,
idiots are
Stacey.
in the
Please,
cult.
Stacey.
Keep drinking the Kool-Aid.
Please, Stacey.
so my question is,
Oh God.
no one brings charges up for nothing. You have to have proof that something was wrong.
No, you don't.
Stephen
Not if
used
you
to
have
know that
judges
because Stephen
who are
used to
against
say
Donald
that.
Trump. You don't have to have charges. You don't have to have anything real. If these judges have biases against Donald Trump because they're in New York, then they have biases against Donald Trump. They can do and say anything they want, and they can say guilty,
Without
guilty.
proof. Without
Donald Trump is
proof.
the cleanest politician that the United States has ever seen since George Washington.
There you go.
If they had
You
anything on
are-
Donald Trump,
Wait,
he would be in prison. He would
Right.
be jailed.
No.
He's not.
no.
They have nothing on him.
Thank
But
you.
you know who they
can't-
have everything on? Joe Biden. You know why?
Oh, look,
Because
look,
his
look.
son is a moron.
What
Because
difference
Hunter
does it make
Biden-
about his
Hunter
son?
Biden is a moron.
What difference does
And
it
Hunter
make about
Biden
his son?
exposed his dad. His father is going to take down the
Stacey,
entire
don't you want to move
Democrat Party.
on? Now,
Get him, Stephen.
And
That's
that
what
has
you-
nothing to do with being
look,
biased.
you don't know how stupid you look. You and
Get
your
him, Stephen.
cohort.
Get
You
him.
look stupid.
Hey,
This is
Todd,
how
for
this
10
is how stupid you are.
All right.
Watch
Go
this.
ahead.
Watch this carefully, and just remember, you're stupid. What is the difference between Joe Biden's son, who benefited from the president, and Donald Trump's children, who all benefited?
Have you seen Donald Trump's kid's penis? Have you seen Donald Trump's kids use cocaine? Have you seen
No,
Donald
you
Trump's
wanted to
kids
see
make
that.
deals with the Chinese? Have you seen Donald
Yes.
Trump's kids
You're
compromise Donald Trump
Yes.
the way Joe Biden's son compromised him with the Chinese for America? You're about to see the
Look,
collapse
you're
of the
about to
Democrat
see-
Party because of Joe Biden's son.
Stay off the
You're
dark
about
web.
to see it, Todd.
Stay
I
off
haven't
the
been
dark
wrong in
web.
10 years. Why am I
Stephen,
being wrong now?
Stay
Stephen,
off
Stephen.
the dark web.
I have
Stephen,
not been wrong, Todd.
Stephen,
You have.
Stephen,
You were born
Stephen,
wrong.
Okay,
Stephen,
Stay
Stephen,
off the
I
dark
have
web.
said-
Stephen,
I'll mute
yeah,
myself.
Stephen, thank you. Now, Stephen, you have to say something, and you have to have some sort
Oh
of
no, you'll see.
proof
You'll see.
what
You
you're
just
saying is
wait.
true
You're
from
going to
some sort of
see
article.
because I read it on the
Stacey,
dark
it
web.
comes true.
You're going to see
I
it.
can't
Okay, but-
help it that y'all bury your heads up in MSNBC and CNN and the Joy Show.
where
Or
do
whatever
you
what
bury
is that
your
show y'all
head?
watch?
Where
What
do
is
you
the show
bury
y'all
your
watch
head?
that has
Fox
that what is
News
it?
and
What is
the
her name?
dark
Whoopi
web.
Goldberg. Y'all,
that's not
that's
the
where
show.
you
I
get
don't
all your
watch that.
information. This is
I
why
don't-
you're always wrong.
All right. So wait, okay, I can't with you all.
Watch.
You'll see.
You have to have some sort of
Every
cousin
time
Todd,
I've been right.
and cousin Todd, you too. You have to have some sort of article that dispels or proves what you're saying. You can't
What
just
did I
say
say?
you think it.
Wait, what did I say?
Anything you said, you
Besides-
had no article that proves it or not.
Okay, listen to me carefully. You know, and I know because you agreed that Donald Trump's ex-wife accused him of rape. Is that right or wrong? So
I could accuse you
Stephen-
of rape. You raped me, Todd.
No, ma'am.
Yeah,
No, ma'am.
I accuse you of rape.
Ma'am. In your wildest dreams.
It's
now-
not my wildest dreams, Todd.
Well, I believe you.
Okay,
Or
so
maybe
Stephen,
vice
you've got
versa.
Stephen.
Maybe you'd rather
Stephen,
get
you've got to let him finish.
gang bang.
We let you finish. You've got to let him finish, and you got to let
Okay.
me finish.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Todd.
I don't want to hear about your wildest dreams, Stephen. You can tell your gangbangs to Keith after I'm off. Now listen. Oh, look, who's here? We were just
Tom.
talking about Stephen getting gangbanged, but we'll
Yeah,
talk
I
about
think
that
I
later.
walked in on
I
a
think it's the
really
other way
bad
around.
moment.
Yeah.
Like, what are you guys talking about?
Well, Stephen had some wild fantasies he was talking about, but we didn't want to hear them. Nevertheless, we were talking about Donald Trump. His ex-wife accused him of rape. And Stephen said, hear this carefully, you can't rape your wife.
I didn't say that. I'm saying Donald Trump did not rape his wife.
You said that.
Hey, Aguna.
Hey,
Aguna,
listeners,
can you talk about the Eagles?
tape.
Aguna, can you talk about the Eagles and take us out of this cousin pod?
Stephen, we can't. I'm running this, honey. We got to finish up about the Trump organization. Yes, we are, but we're going to finish out the Trump organization being found guilty on 17 counts of tax fraud.
But Donald Trump is not. But Donald Trump.
What I was saying, Stephen, you got to stop. You're starting to go, and you're not letting me finish. And you know that leads to you being mute, which leads to you being mad. So let's stop it.
Mad.
So Aguna, the Trump organization, you don't get convicted of 17 counts of tax fraud for nothing. For him to do that and not for his organization to be guilty of that and for him to not have any guilt in it means what?
Well, I mean, clearly, again, part of how you set up these organizations is to give yourself limited liability. So I know Trump is a billionaire, so he knows how to set it up so that his exposure isn't maximized. So that doesn't mean that in the court of public opinion, we shouldn't look at this situation as if, okay, if he's going to do that in the organization, how do you think he's going to run the country or do other things, right? But at the end of the day, from a legalese standpoint, clearly, it's not whether you're guilty or innocent, is what you can be proven in court. Right. And so your organization was fined a little bit liable versus Trump himself.
Jail. Yeah.
That's the way the law is. That's how that's
because he can say, I'm not an accountant. I didn't know. He knew. Right. Which is why his
Then how come they didn't go after Donald Trump, Aguna? Why didn't they go after Trump?
Because he just said why. Said why. He's insulated. He just said why they didn't go after him.
This is how the law works.
This is how
law is blind in this country. It's not what's right or wrong. It's what can be proven in court, right? So liability in this case, he doesn't have any liability. So, and a lot of times, like in any criminal case or any civil case, these lawyers look at what is our best way to get the outcome that we want. It doesn't matter if it's Trump lawyers or anybody else. That's how lawyers are, right? Okay. So if they probably felt that they had a higher percentage of getting, either conviction or the civil suit or whatever by going through this means versus the other. So you can't sit there and say, why didn't they do this? Well, it's more to it than that. It's more about
where was this? Aguna, was it in New York?
Yes, it was in New York, but it
wouldn't
matter where it was.
Do you think Donald Trump's organization had any chance in New York, Aguna?
Let me try to explain it.
In New York?
$1 billion.
Okay.
Stop applying Yahoo logic to the law. Okay.
Yahoo,
if it's over in Florida, he has a better chance. A lot of these circuit judges and these judges have been, appointed by
New York.
Look, the bottom line of it is stop looking at that aspect of it, Stephen.
I'm not.
Whether or not he did it, yes or no. Was he wrong, yes or no? You're sitting here worrying about kind of this conspiracy behind the fact that they're going after him.
That's on the dark web, yeah.
Come on, man.
But let me say this.
This organization, there is some criminality here. There's some corruption here.
Which is what he used to say. But let me say this, Aguna.
Because it's New York. So consider the source. Because if it was South Carolina, you would believe it.
Okay, now let me explain it this way. If Trump owned these apartments and he devalued them to get money, now this is his accountant. He can't do it. His accountant has to do it at his discretion. So Trump tells him, boost up the price. The accountant, not Trump, has to boost up the price and write, this building is worth $8 billion, when just 2 years ago he wrote it's worth $2 million.
Yeah, I mean,
so that helps Trump.
In New York, if it was somebody that was on the side of the left, If it was somebody on the left,
Stephen,
would they let it slide?
no,
Yes.
Stephen, what
But
you're
if it's
not going to
Donald
do,
Trump, they're not going to let it slide.
what you're not going to
Do
do
you
is
think
make
they're
this left
just
right.
being
This
judicial?
is right, wrong,
not.
what can be proven in court. This is how you lose credibility, Stephen, because you
No, it's
automatically
not.
try to make it about liberals, conservatives, when in fact, he did it here with the Department of Interior here in D.C. with the U.S. Postal Building. They inflated the price so that they can lease it back to the country at a higher rate. And so he was basically defrauding taxpayers. Now you're sitting here trying to make it left, right. No, it's right, wrong. And you're looking at this person, you're trying to make it about Donald Trump being a victim. He has millions of dollars. He has lawyers in place to insulate him from this. Well, I mean,
what I'm saying is somebody on the left does the same thing. They're not going to be scrutinized by people, judges who are on the left.
Who on the left?
What I'm saying
who
is
on the
true.
left is doing that?
All right.
You have an example?
I'm going to share. I'm going to share this article.
People on the left, just anybody.
And I would like Keith, the constitutional conservative, to comment on this. This is an article published yesterday.
The president
in the
of the United States.
by, excuse me, can you hear me? This is an article printed by Pence by the Hill, written by Brett Samuels yesterday at 11:14 a.m. It says, Vice President Pence pushes back on Trump's call to terminate the Constitution. And let me further extrapolate on that by saying what they're talking about. And then Keith, the constitutional conservative, I need you to address it. So it says former Vice President Mike Pence on Monday, yesterday, pushed back on former President Trump's assertion that the Constitution should be disregarded to allow for him to return to the White House in the wake of new revelations about Twitter's handling of a controversial story about Hunter Biden. I must tell you that I think that everyone that serves in public office, everyone that aspires to serve or serve again, should make it clear that we will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. How can you, Keith, uphold and defend the Constitution and then do what former President Trump suggested?
Well, first of all, the Constitution has already been breached thousands of times. So it's not Trump who violated the Constitution, and I doubt if Trump actually said, they take his words and twist them out of context. So I don't believe that that's what Trump meant. First of all, and that even with Pence, what that reporter is writing is, my God. You look at the title of that the story you just read. Look at the caption. Look at the title. Incorrect. Trump never called for the Constitution to be violated. I'd like you to show me where he quote him in saying what he said.
Okay, so it says it right here. Murkowski on Trump called to suspend the Constitution in order to allow him to go back into office. That's what they're saying.
Are those his actual words, or is that what they are saying that is what they're assuming that he's the way they're paraphrasing? Are they paraphrasing?
Well, it says Trump has for years, if you look at this article, Trump has for years claimed the 2020 election was stolen and fraudulent.
True. And
that Hunter Biden colluded with his father over his business dealings, though there is no proof of either.
There is proof of that.
Listen, wait a minute, excuse me.
Come on.
But his calls for the Constitution to be ignored, Trump's calls for the Constitution to be ignored, marked a new level of incendiary rhetoric.
The Constitution was already ignored because Trump never got a hearing, and
check this out.
And they never investigated all of the claims that Trump tried to make. And we made claims, and even Pence did not do the right thing, because the claim is that Article 2, and I'm giving you the Constitution, Article 2 says that the legislature has the power to change laws. And laws were changed not by the legislature in several states, but they were changed by commissioners, governors, and these types of people. They were changed by
Amen.
election.
You're
No,
100%
I-
correct.
you know,
Steve.
at
It
some
doesn't matter what
point
Aguna
on
says.
this show-
Aguna's a liar.
On
Go ahead,
some
lie,
point
Aguna.
on this show, I just hope that Stephen and Keith are just brave enough. Find it in your heart to be brave enough to address an issue directly and
I
not
just
count
did.
out these
He just
worthless
did.
pivots that
did.
don't mean anything.
He
You
just did.
basically said, first thing you tried to say, hey, let's discredit the source, because I'm too afraid to actually talk specifically to the topic. I'd
Well, can
rather
you tell me
pivot
what he
to
actually
something
said?
that makes me feel
Aguna.
comfortable, and so
Can
I
you
don't have
give
to
me-
Okay,
address
wait a
it.
minute.
Like
Wait a
Aguna,
minute.
you're not
Now,
losing
okay,
The bottom
wait a
line of it
minute.
is,
Wait a minute.
he
You're
said
talking
it,
over
and it's
Aguna, and
cowardice,
he didn't
it's
say
cowardice
anything
for
when
you
you guys
to
are
defend
talking.
it. Just
Go ahead,
address
Aguna.
the issue.
Okay.
Bottom line of it is, look, if Trump said that, okay, I get what you're saying, Keith. Show me the source and all that stuff. Bottom line, even what you're using to try to say that state legislatures don't have it in the rights of their constitution to make laws based on, or to do executive orders. Governors have the power to do that. Trump used executive orders when he was in the executive office. So he'd sit there and try to say that provision, again, there were other states. He not only lost Pennsylvania, he lost Arizona, Michigan. And you're in the same argument they're making in Pennsylvania goes against the argument he made in Arizona. Pennsylvania said that the polls were open too long. Arizona says he filed a motion that the polls weren't open long enough. So which one is it going to be?
So
Stephen
on
has
that
for
note-
months talked about proof. There is no
So
proof.
on
He
that
raised
note-
$250 million and they didn't submit this evidence, this mysterious evidence that you guys are claiming he did. And
Okay,
in
so
fact,
let me
instead of talking about, again, Trump launched one last point, Stacey. Instead of launching his campaign about what he can do differently or better for the country, you see that this candidate that Stephen and Keith so vehemently defend, his only platform is that the election was stolen from him and I deserve to be president. He has not said anything on policy. He has not said anything about
His
inflation.
policies were
All
better
he's
than
doing is saying
anything
he's
Biden
a
has
victim.
shown us.
He's a victim.
Okay, so excuse me. Let me.
Shut up.
I want to
We're not
pivot.
talking about Biden. We're talking about
Excuse me.
Trump. What's his
I wanna-
policy?
Excuse me. I want to pivot
What's his
to the
platform?
Supreme Court. Excuse me. I want to pivot to
Go
the
ahead.
Supreme Court tomorrow.
Keith, we can't hear you. You're
Court.
muted.
Tomorrow, the Supreme Court is considering. Now, no one's really talking about this, but the Supreme Court is considering limiting judicial scrutiny in U.S. elections, and that would make the Supreme Court one and only decider of state legislators' decisions when it comes to elections. So, do you really know what that means, Cousin Todd? What does that mean?
Constitutional. That is
You have
not
to unmute him. He's
But
muted.
if the Supreme Court is doing that,
not
no,
constitutional.
Todd muted himself.
Todd, unmute yourself. There you go.
They have no
Thank you,
authority
Stephen.
to do that.
The Supreme Court has no authority to dictate.
He asked
federal-
Todd, Aguna. Let Todd speak.
Well,
The Supreme Court has no. I'm just clarifying the question. The
Mhm.
Supreme Court has no
Todd, you're not.
jurisdiction
No, Aguna, you're
to
not.
limit
Todd knows the
federal
answer.
elections
Let him
at the
speak.
state level. Shut
Let
up,
Todd
Stephen.
speak.
We're trying to have an educated conversation. I know
Well,
you're not.
do you think Todd's not educated?
so
I'm not. That's not what I said.
Aguna, I
That's what
agree,
you're saying.
I agree with you on that one, Aguna.
I was just clarifying the argument.
Let Todd speak.
No,
Todd, please.
you don't let him speak.
Todd, you have the
You
floor.
got this bearded
Todd, you
coalition
have the
going
floor.
on. That's the only reason
Let
why
Aguna jump all over you.
you got the salt and pepper beard
Let,
going. for you.
Todd, please.
Go on, Todd. We need you.
the
like you more than I
Supreme
like
Court that Donald Trump stacked, I think, is one of the most crooked Supreme Courts we've ever had.
All right, let's go back to Aguna.
And
Stephen, look, you're not an authoritarian on this show, Stephen.
Let's
Stop.
go back to
And
Aguna.
so-
Todd
and
don't know what the
so-
hell he's talking about.
And so when you have a court that's been stacked like that, they're going to try everything, just like they said in the very beginning. Oh, this is precedence. This is a woman's right to an abortion. Oh, it's precedence. Stare decisis. This is what they all said. And then they got in there and flipped it. So then you had Clarence Thomas saying, and I think we should revisit same-sex marriage. And I think we should revisit contraception. But he left out revisiting interracial marriage. How convenient. I think we should revisit that because I think coons like him should be in jail for corrupting white women and marrying them.
You don't like black men marrying white women?
I don't like Toms marrying white women.
Wow.
So the Supreme Court, if you look at this article, let me share this article. The Supreme Court is up tomorrow, and no one's talking about this, but we're talking about it because we want our viewers to be informed.
Okay.
Tomorrow. Go ahead, Cousin Todd.
Okay, I thought I better finish that out because I just realized something hit my brain and said, you're dealing with people like Stephen and Keith. You better explain what you mean by that.
Todd's brain.
So I said what I was actually saying there, because I know it's above your heads, Stephen and Keith, is that how convenient for this ignorant coward to leave out interracial marriage, but he wants to make big government, which he wants small government, get into your bedrooms and determine who you can and can't marry when that was already done to him. But through other people's hard work, he overcame and he was able to marry a white woman. You see? And so he's dictating who you can and can't marry. No, and that is a contradiction in terms. When that was done to him, now he's doing it to others. And for him in particular to do that tells you what kind of low-life pig he is.
Okay, so if you look at this article, it's by AP News, written, let's see, by who and when, by Mark Sherman, December 4th, 2022. And it says, the Supreme Court is about to confront a new elections case, a Republican-led challenge, asking the justices for a novel ruling that could significantly increase the power of state lawmakers over elections for Congress and the presidency. They're set to hear arguments tomorrow, Wednesday, in a case from North Carolina, where Republican efforts to draw congressional districts heavily in their favor were blocked by a Democratic majority on the state Supreme Court because the GOP map violated the state constitution. A court-drawn map produced 7 seats for each party in last month's midterm elections in a highly competitive North Carolina. The question, and this is for each one of you, so listen to this, read this. The question for the justices is whether the U.S. Constitution's provision giving state legislatures the power to make the rules about the times, places, and manner of congressional elections cuts state courts out the process. Is that true? Keith, let's start with you.
Process. There you go. The process, if a law is broken, I mean, if they go contrary to the law, then that's when the courts are supposed to get involved. Courts are not making law. The state legislatures have the power to make laws. The justices have the power to uphold, those with a decision that upholds the law. I mean, they can't change laws that state legislatures make if they are constitutional. It's as simple as that.
Right.
Not by the Constitution, anyway.
Right.
So that's the way it should be.
Right. Right.
Lord, that's
right.
Well,
and that is correct. But what you see here is, and what we got to be careful of, because you're looking at the state and the federal, right? So at the state level, you're correct. State, judicial branch of the state government does not make laws. They deem them constitutional or not. What the judicial branch said was that these redistricting lines were unconstitutional. So they did that at the state level. So now what you're looking at is a heavily conservative court at the federal level weighing in on the state's ability to govern itself, which goes against the Constitution. So what you have here is a conflict of interest, especially if you're saying that, the judicial branch at the federal level, which is heavily stacked by Republicans. Trump appointed 3 additional judges, whatever, right? So the danger here is that if what we're seeing with the gridlock, especially in the federal government, in the House and the Senate, where things are going to the Supreme Court to adjudicate whether or not it's constitutional or not, what you have is people who are not elected. Again, judges are appointed. They're not elected by the people, actually influencing law. To Keith's point, they don't make law. They're saying it whether it's constitutional or not. But because they're very partisan, they're actually influencing and making laws. And so now you're seeing a conflict at the state and federal level. Because again, what's in North Carolina, where the Republicans are trying to keep power, may not hold way in other states where the Democrats have power and may do the same thing. So it's important for a balance of government to happen. So this could backfire if the federal judges get involved, which they seem to be wanting to get involved, especially with state legislators. I mean, that's a very dangerous slope.
So, Stephen, did we have you comment on this?
Yeah. Well, what they do now in the Supreme Court is we have a group of people that try to uphold the Constitution. They're not partisan. They're not left or right. They're not conservative or liberal. What they do, they try to uphold the Constitution, and that's what we want the Supreme Court to do. And that's where the left is screwed up. The left is like, let's put 17,000 judges in the Supreme Court, so they will always be on our side, no matter what it is. We don't care about the Constitution. We're gonna change the Constitution. This is what the left always tries to do. So, we're going to change.
Stephen, can you answer the question?
What we're going to do? We don't care about the Constitution.
Should the federal Supreme Court be allowed to overrule state?
Wait a minute, Laguna. They're constitutionalists, and they want to uphold the Constitution. That's all they've ever done. Just like with Roe v. Wade or whatever else it is, it doesn't matter. What they're doing is saying that's states' rights. It's not that we're on the right but the others are on the left.
So let's unpack that. Unpack that.
They said they weren't going to do that.
All right, excuse me. We got to do one at a time. We got to do one at a time.
Constitutionalists. That's what the left doesn't understand. They want to.
You clearly don't understand.
They want to use courts to change everything. The only thing Keith and I want is for the courts to uphold the Constitution.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Okay, go ahead,
Aguna. Here, Stephen, go ahead, you went on that eloquent rant like you always do right around this time on the show. Okay,
and you're
contradicting yourself because you're saying that, hey, the federal court is upholding the Constitution, right? The Constitution says that state legislators have the right to come up with their lines or districting lines and things like that. The state court in that same state is saying that these lines are unconstitutional. Right. So now you're going on this big rant saying, well, the federal court is trying to uphold the Constitution. That's what the state court is doing, too. They deem these districts unconstitutional. So you're going on this huge pivot talking about left and right, but it's the right that's sitting there trying to overturn states' rights. They're overturning the states' rights, saying that you don't have the right to adjudicate your own state, because it's not in our favor. So all that BS that you just said is not a contradiction of what you're talking about. Okay. If they're going to uphold the Constitution, let the states do what they want to do, because there's no difference between that and this whole abortion debate that we're talking about. If they can draw the districts, they should be able to say whether or not abortion is legal in their state, right? To their state court should be able to say, well, these districts aren't constitutional. And then you're going to have the federal court say, oh, we're going to override your ability to uphold your own Constitution.
All right, Cousin Todd.
Yeah, I understand it's complex. This is
Cousin Todd.
I can't talk from the hip. You got to know what you're talking about.
It's just spin.
Okay, spin. Do you know what he just said? He said what you were saying is, yes, the Supreme Court should be constitutionalist. That means let the state take care of their own. They don't need the Supreme Court to determine whether or not those lines were drawn unfairly. They can determine that themselves. That it's as simple as that. Doesn't need to go to the Supreme Court, but it's going there because Republicans know that Donald Trump did his job and put these hacks on the Supreme Court to side with Republicans.
Okay.
You can't say states' rights. I want to talk about. You can't have it both ways.
Okay.
States' rights or not.
I want to talk about the NDAA.
I think that was over his head. I don't think he understood that.
But you can't count
at
on
all.
It's the
one
left.
thing
It's the
for
left's fault.
Evidence shows that you cannot count. You can't count on Republicans to side with Republicans as much as you can count on Democrats siding with Democrats.
We're talking about the Constitution. Stop. Can you stop trying to label and scapegoat? Talk about the issue. Talk about policy. You'll have a lot more credibility.
I'm only responding.
Try it sometime.
I'm labeling to Todd. I'm responding to Todd's label.
So let me talk about the NDAA.
Be brave in this debate. Address the issue. That's all I ask, Keith.
Let me talk about the NDAA.
That's no fun.
The NDAA is the National Defense Authorization Act. President Obama signed it into law, but it includes a lot of things a lot of people don't know about. One such thing is a proposal to add marijuana, permitting provisions to the defense bill. This NDAA has to go to the Senate, and it's going to go pretty soon. This article in The Hill by Alexander Bolton, dated today at 11:55 a.m., says that Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell today poured cold water on Democratic efforts to add language allowing banks to do business with state-approved marijuana businesses and permitting reform, a priority of Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, to the annual defense authorization bill. I want to talk about what that does. What does that do for, first off, banks, authorized marijuana businesses authorized by their states can't do business with banks federally. So they're big cash businesses. They're unable to do what other businesses can do, and it limits their ability for growth.
Right.
Joe Manchin in West Virginia, my mother's home state, my mother's home state, wants to probably do this to expand business and to bring more revenue to West Virginia. But this will allow marijuana businesses to federally put their money in banks federally. What does this do when this is in this NDAA? Are they trying to sneak it in? That has to go to the Senate. Are they going to be able to do it, Cousin Todd?
I don't know, because the Republicans work against their own people. It's a great idea because marijuana is going to be a boom, and the only people that's going to lose out are the banks, because they'll go through credit unions to get their money. And so banks want in, people want in. So it just would behoove government to allow this, but it's a Barack Obama idea. So,
well, I don't think it's a Barack Obama idea as much as it is. He signed NDAA, which is not the specific. The NDAA is the vehicle, right, or the highway. The NDAA is a highway. This is a vehicle. Barack Obama didn't do anything about this vehicle. He signed the highway. So Aguna, or no, let me go to
open the door for this.
So let me go to Stephen. So when McConnell does this, isn't he inhibiting business?
Yeah, this is why I'm an independent thinker, and I know what's better for states. And I don't try to. I don't cut anything around. What I'm saying is, what they have to do is. This is something that's on the verge of being huge, like what Todd is saying. This is something that's going to be huge, and it's great for states, and it's great for taxes, and it's great for everybody. Everything's going to be better in your states. Like Colorado, that was one of the first states to do it. They can't get any banks to work with them or anything else. This needs to pass. I don't care if it's Obama or the devil himself. This needs to work, because there's alcohol, there's cigarettes, there's gambling, there's whatever else that you can have taxes on and your state can make money on is a good thing. You don't have to partake. You tell your children, do not partake. Don't drink, don't gamble, don't smoke, don't smoke pot or whatever. But they're trying to take marijuana from it's like a Schedule 2 or Schedule 1 drug. They're trying to reduce it from being like ecstasy or something else. They're trying to reduce that to like a number 1 or number 2. I can't remember what it is. But what it does is it makes it less of something that is so horrible for you, because cocaine is less of a drug, less of a dangerous drug than marijuana right now, because it has medicinal properties, and people understand that marijuana has medicinal properties. And if it helps the state, it helps with taxes, it helps build schools and roads and everything else, it's not a bad thing. So that's where the independent thinker in me comes in and says, let's do what's right.
Okay,
it's a natural thing. You don't have to manufacture it. You grow it like you would a poinsettia plant at Christmas.
Thank you.
Christmas.
Okay.
It's not a bad thing.
Thank you. The White House also in this NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, it says this Fox News article written right here, published December 5th, 2022 at 3. That's today. No, yesterday. I'm sorry. At 3:35 p.m. says the White House maintains support for keeping military vax mandate as Congress weighs rolling it back in NDAA. Keith, in this NDAA, they're trying to say, hey, military, you don't have to be mandated to get the COVID vaccine.
Amen.
Good.
Amen.
Why should they be mandated? I mean, that's ridiculous. They never have in the history of our military. When was that ever been?
Do you know what type of shots?
Wait a minute.
Do you know what type of shots they give you in basic training? Do you know what type of shots?
Well, it's experimental. It's experimental, Aguna.
No, it's not. It's not experimental.
It's experimental.
It's not true.
But
it is 100% true.
And by the way, when you go to basic, you get a lot of experimental shots as well. So I don't know what point you're trying to make.
Well, maybe you wanted in Tuskegee, if you wanted them to give people syphilis.
Say Tuskegee.
Oh,
That's what I meant.
Talking about
maybe you wanted to get syphilis.
And you see the pivot? You see the pivot? It has nothing to do with that.
That's the
he went to Tuskegee.
Let me say this.
Let's go to Nazi Germany and the human experiments they were doing in Nazi Germany. Let's take it all the way.
But they're doing experiments and
don't just go to Tuskegee. Let's go all the way off the rails.
They're not good for you.
That was good. Let me say this. In the military, they get so many shots that they can't even count them.
Exactly.
And never in the history of the military have they ever refused to get any shots up until Donald Trump became president.
Whatever, Aguna.
They have never refused any shots. And as a matter of fact,
you and Jesus are perfect.
Not for the flu.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Here's the thing. Well, we're overlooking. Stacey, it's my turn, so I can add some common sense to this thing. Okay. So bottom line of it, as you can see, the problem isn't quiet, Keith. You had your chance.
Why do you always think
the problem isn't what's in the problem isn't if you look at each issue, right? Whether it's vaccine mandates or whether it's marijuana being financed through the banks, what you're seeing here is every side is trying to use a way just to throw water on this NDAA because it's a vehicle. Sometimes, like what Mitch McConnell is trying to do is say, okay, if we want to legalize marijuana, we need to have a separate bill in order for us to debate it. Let's not roll it into this large piece of legislation where you have all these other riders on it, right? Including this vaccine mandates and all this. So it's funny hearing Keith and Stephen try to argue over, oh, this is great. Oh, this. Bottom line of it is you got to give to get something, right? So what happens in this case, a large piece of legislation like this, every side has a little piece to gain in it. And typically you guys are against that. You guys don't want all these pork and all this stuff going on. But now when you look issue by issue, you're all of a sudden for it. But in order to get this no vaccine mandate, you're probably going to have to do something that the so-called boogeyman left wants. But rather not get anything than to compromise. So this is compromised government working, but you guys are against government working.
Where does the Constitution authorize all of this? All this power?
What are you talking about? It authorizes legislation to make laws. Shut up. Stop
Where?
that nonsense. We know better than this, man. We just because you say Constitution a bunch of times doesn't mean you read it or know what's in it.
Where do you find?
We're beyond that. We're beyond that, Keith.
Okay. So let's look at this article, please.
Come on.
It says,
Constitution.
In August 2021, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin issued a memo making COVID vaccines mandatory for all service members. Republicans have been demanding the vaccine mandate on service members be lifted for months as unvaccinated troops have continued to be subjected to punishments despite President Joe Biden declaring in September that the pandemic is over. As a result, the military is also struggling. As a result, the military, they say, is also struggling with recruitment and retainment. Yep. But I also want to say, at the same time, the CDC is warning of a triple-demic of RSV, the flu, and COVID. ABC News reports yesterday at 1:34 p.m. that health officials are warning. Can you see that? Can you see this? Okay. That health officials are warning, if I can get this video out of the way, that's not supposed to be here. Sorry. Thank you. Are warning that flu hospitalizations are at a 10-year high at the same time as a jump in RSV and COVID-19 cases. So they're telling people, CDC is saying, hey, wear masks. Keith, you used to always say COVID was like the flu. Well, now the flu is here. CDC is saying wear a mask. Are you going to wear a mask, Keith?
No.
You can't stop me from breathing air.
I'm not wearing a mask.
Because I'm smart. I know more than science.
Now,
we never had to wear a mask.
Now, let me talk, Stacey. Let me talk for a minute. Aguna gets all the talking. No. But anyway, the point is I'm not wearing a mask because it's a flu. And this season is every year. And I've been doing this for years. And I never got COVID. And I'm not bragging about that. I'm just saying that
Why'd
Lord
you bring it up then?
Is my healer. The Lord is my defense. I keep telling you.
That's right. The Lord made vaccines too. The Lord made vaccines.
Depend on the strength
of
the
vaccine.
And I will not be wearing a mask. I won't be wearing a mask. That's
the Lord made stupidity too.
A vaccine will kill more people than COVID.
Because when I get oxygen,
that's not true, Stephen. We don't believe that nonsense. Why do you come on here with that same nonsense? Shut up.
The vaccine will kill more people than COVID.
So
it's not a vaccine.
So Aguna, if you look at this article,
does it say the vaccine
on their side?
Aguna, look at this article.
Yeah, because it's all about
CNN.com. CNN.com.
Don't get mad. Read a book.
CNN.com.
It's not about Dr. Fauci. Okay,
CNN.com. Okay, I'm putting everybody on.
Okay.
This is ridiculous. CNN.com says flu vaccine appears to be a very good match to circulating strains, according to Brenda Goodman. CNN updated today at 5:44 p.m. This year's flu shot appears to be a very good match to circulating strains. However, she noted that flu vaccinations are lagging behind the pace of previous years. That to me, Aguna, says that we should be vaccinated, right?
You know, people are using vaccines, medication, and concerns around health as their Waterloo to stand on as if you're making some type of great stand for humanity. You're not. Okay, we have technology, we have trials and things like that are done through computers and stuff. I know that's called witchcraft to some of you on here, but things are not experimental. They're not all this little nonsense. Look,
if you look at that, Aguna, talk about how the flu is hitting the U.S. hard now that people are kind of pandemic weary. And they're kind of like
it was proven, Stacey, during the pandemic, the flu was at an all-time low, probably because people were isolated and all that things, right? So there's a direct correlation there. Now, if you individual choose not to get it, I'm not sitting here saying you should get the vaccine, you shouldn't. We're talking about the U.S. military, right? Mandating in the military. And in the military, if the brass decides that, hey, we need to have these, because yellow fever, all these different vaccines that these guys get when they're deployed and they're in these different areas.
20.
Now you're sitting there trying to make this political statement in the military because for some reason, private citizens think they know more than what we strategically need to do when we deploy our troops. We're all of a sudden keyboard experts. No, the military should decide if this is one of many of the cocktail drugs that they give soldiers because they give them a lot. Hey, so be it.
Over 20.
Again, you see, and then I'm going to use Keith and Stevens' little terms. Hey, the far right are the only ones that are trying to make this thing an issue. Look, let the military decide what's best for the military. Why do we need to politicize things of public health? This used to be common sense. And if you go back to the Spanish flu and go back to some of the pandemics that we had previously,
1800s, yeah.
People all got lockstep involved and behind the preventative measures to eradicate the disease. We didn't have Trump sitting there telling you not to wear a mask. Meanwhile, he's getting the best types of care. He's getting the vaccine. He's doing all these things that he's telling you not to do. So, I mean, the hypocrisy is ridiculous. And this sounds like a broken record. All these fools on here talk about vaccine killing and all this other. Shut it out.
So, Stephen, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to share this screen with you. The CDC is recommending, if you look at this, COVID resurgence prompts new CDC mask guidance for Long Island. Can you see that? And parts of New York City. This was written yesterday by Christina Fan. And she's saying that, if I can get down here and get it through all these ads, oh my gosh. It's a season of giving, but be wary of giving your family members COVID. The virus is rebounding in 5 New York counties. Streets are bustling, masks are off, and capacity limits are gone. It feels as if COVID has been eradicated, but numbers indicate it's very much still here. So why would the CDC recommend indoor mask wearing in its latest COVID data tracker report, Stephen?
For a mask. 2 years ago, there was no sign of the flu. No one ever got the flu. Everybody got COVID because even if you had the flu, it was COVID. Even if you got a cold, it was COVID. Can't y'all figure this out by now? Am I the only one that can think independently besides Keith? This is all garbage. Lloyd Austin was garbage. What he did to our military was garbage. He ought to be thrown out. He ought to be in prison for what he did to our soldiers. All of this is garbage, and it's going to be proven that COVID
what are you reading from the dark
garbage.
web?
The flu is
He's
what
reading
they're
his
saying. Oh, it's going to be the flu plus COVID plus this. Wear your mask inside. It's to control you. You people are sheep. You have to understand you're being manipulated. And relatively smart people, like I think are on this show, are being manipulated. I don't know if Aguna is making money off masks. Maybe he has some kind of Nigerian company that makes masks or something.
That's a good idea.
I don't know what it is.
That's a good idea.
You're always trying to make money because you're always calling me and saying I'm a prince. Right. You're always trying to make money.
Don't be stupid enough to give it to them. I'm sure independent thinkers, you're giving them money
understand
too.
it. We know it.
Demand.
We're not stupid anymore in this country. So you need to change your tactics, change what you're doing, and then you're going to get us back. But until then, we don't believe any of your garbage, any of your crap.
Okay.
So
all right.
Man, you
feel better now, Todd. You feel better now.
Try something new,
Todd. Try something new, Todd.
No, I'm gonna email you as soon as I get off the show.
I know, and I'll probably give you all my money.
I have one of your family members captured.
Oh, hilarious!
That's
and
what
you need to send me $1,000 so I can get them
rich. I understand, Aguna.
I want that cash app. Give me that cash app.
I understand. That's what the Nigerians do. I get it.
That's right. And we make millions. And we're coming for you. We're coming for your children. We're coming for you.
All right. So if you look at this article, the U.S. Congress, Reuters came out with this article today at 6:53 p.m. U.S. Congress could punt funding bill into 2023. McConnell says we have 10 days before government runs out of money. But Congress may be forced to delay until early 2023 the final agreement on funding the government through the end of its fiscal year instead of relying on a stopgap measure to keep the lights on. The federal government is currently set to run out of money on December 16th without a vote on either an omnibus bill funding the government through September 30, 2023, or a short-term bill known as a continuing resolution. Why do we keep running into this every year, Cousin Todd?
Because
that money.
you've you've elected too many Republicans. And so they like to make deals and threaten to shut down the government unless they get tax cuts for wealthy people. And they always seem to hold the threat of Social Security and, the safety net. And I don't know why they always go after Social Security. It's such a drop in the bucket. And as well as anything that's going to help poor people and people like Keith and Stephen, who are poor. They don't admit
I'm
that.
not
but
poor.
Okay.
I don't think we're poor.
Right. I know you don't think so.
I'll put my bank account against yours.
I know you don't think you're poor, but people
My
that
beard
make
looks better than yours, so I can't be poor.
He's got that. Look at that Stetson piano he has in his background, Todd. Come on now.
No, it's a knockoff. It's a knockoff of Guna, but it's not cheap.
That's right.
All right. So let me move on because we're running out of time. Walker versus Warnock.
Oh yeah.
One quick comment before you go there.
Somebody called me a coon. A coon is a good animal.
I want to make one quick comment.
Okay, go ahead.
About me being poor. Todd, just consider moving to California and see if you can survive our high prices. And you'll see how
you know what, Keith? Keith, you're rich. You're rich in the kingdom of God, Keith.
Yeah. But no,
you're rich in the kingdom of God.
Yeah, but
my point.
You show love for your fellow man, Keith?
Yes, he does.
Todd to move to California. And I want to see how Todd can buy a house here or Todd can rent. Either rent.
I'm not trying to shame you or Stephen. I'm just saying.
Yes, you did. You said we were poor.
That's not shameful.
You guys are poor in spirit.
You said we were poor.
That's not shaming you. Listen, when I say poor, I mean anybody that makes under $65,000 a year is, in my estimation, when you think about rich, middle class, and poor, what is middle class and what is rich? So unless you're making $200,000,
Todd, do you make over $65,000 a year?
Ma'am, I'm not talking to you about how much money I make.
All right,
I'm just saying.
Excuse me. Let's look at the screen.
I make that off of one email scam. Come
okay.
on. Hello, come on. You know it, Stephen. Come on. You know what it is. I get that in one email.
You can't get me.
All that
so
money.
if you look at this, 2022, excuse me, look at this. This is showing the.
Come on, Walker.
This is showing the 64% of votes in latest results from New York Times. They're saying Herschel Walker's 50.6% with Raphael Warnock 49.4%. My question is, let's start with Keith.
Start with me.
Okay, Cousin Todd.
All the rural counties.
Let's start with Keith.
First.
Wait, let's
that, right?
Okay, go ahead, Cousin Todd.
When all the votes come in, don't get mad.
Okay, we're talking about Herschel Walker and Warnock.
Right.
What did you have a question for me, or did you just want me to?
Why is Trump pushing Herschel Walker so much?
I don't know. Maybe he's great in bed.
Because he's making money off of Walker. He gets 90% of the donations that go to the Walker campaign.
Well, this is the thing. Probably, but Herschel Walker, and Stephen will admit this, he doesn't know what he's doing or saying. Now, if you had a Democrat candidate who had done half of the things Herschel Walker did, what would they be saying about that Democrat? Oh, he's a typical Democrat. He beat his wife. He held a gun to her head. Yeah.
Cousin Todd, I voted Democrat in 2018 because I was scared the Republicans would have too much power.
I know you did. You said the Republicans were crazy. You said Donald Trump was like a
I'm an independent. Donald Trump has not been proven. Donald Trump has not been proven to be a bad person.
Why did you say he was a dictator?
Because I thought with everything that he had behind him that he could be a dictator. It turned out Joe Biden is a dictator.
But.
So anyway,
there's no but.
Hey, ask the people that Trump hired and turned against him. And why don't you ask people that actually are close to him? Ask Pence.
The people who turned against him did it because they thought they could make hay.
Yeah, and who hired them? Who hired them? Who made the decision
Donald
to hire
Trump is the cleanest politician we've ever known in this country besides George Washington.
You don't even believe that yourself, man.
All right.
Stop it.
Donald Trump is clean.
Foolishness.
How did I miss the viral moment?
Oh, I can't. But anyway, Herschel Walker has no business in this race.
Because he's black.
Because he's black?
I guess so. I know you hate black people that don't think
the way you do. Why'd you bring up color, man?
Are you a racist?
Why are you bringing up color? Only racists see racism.
Right.
Shame on you.
Because he's not the kind of black
Why
guy
can't he be a man? Why can't he be a man before he's black, Stephen? Why did you bring up color? That's
because he's an Uncle Tom. Because he's an Uncle Tom like Clarence Thomas. Because Clarence Thomas doesn't agree with Todd. He's an Uncle Tom.
Clarence Thomas did agree with
Nobody was making it about race. Nobody was making it about
race. What are you talking about? Clarence Thomas
projecting. He's not a smart candidate.
Excuse me. So look at the screen, please. Thank you. Nearly half, or 45% of public K through 12 schools had at least one teacher vacancy as of October, according to government data released today. And this is CNN article by Katie Labasco, published at 3:35 p.m. today. Let's talk about this. This pandemic, and then we're going to go into our roundtable. This pandemic has caused a lot of havoc in our schools. And we are still dealing with it. You know, I have a cousin who is a school administrator, and she's seeing the children fighting and totally suicide attempts and total unsettling of children's schools. And we're losing a lot of people working with those children. They're leaving from burnout, from fatigue. What do we do to help our schools, starting with Keith and Stephen, then Aguna, and then Cousin Todd?
Well, we've got to get back to our founding principles. We need to start educating them in basic math, science, and let's see, history, American history.
History? Oh, you don't want them to learn history. Now, come on.
Teach them, we need to teach them how to read and write. There are many of those facets. The kids can't read, they can't write, they can't do math, they don't know science, they don't know.
What does it have to do with teacher vacancies and trauma from COVID?
The reason they don't know this, why don't you mute everybody like you've been doing?
Okay, go ahead.
Focus on
Keith, as soon as you stop talking over everybody like you have been doing, I'll start muting them.
That's right, Keith.
Yeah.
Address the question, please. We're talking about vacancies, not education. We're talking about teacher vacancies.
The whole idea here is the teachers are out not because they're sick, not because of COVID, but they're out because they're tired of the really the fascist ways that the schools are being governed by, especially in LAUSD, which is the second largest union in the country, the second largest after New York. So education-wise, the left fascists are dominating. They are dominating every aspect of our lives. They're dominating every
by doing what?
How much do teachers get paid? So you're saying that they should increase the salary of teachers?
Race theory, critical race theory, all of this nonsense
about scapegoating. Address the vacancy issue.
About genders, and all that nonsense about just all kinds of nonsense. Nothing to do with that.
Just pay the teachers more.
Okay, thank you.
All that propaganda. Just pay the teachers more. Stop the propaganda.
You said I talk over Aguna, so I just wanted you to clarify that too. Have I been talking?
Thank you, Stephen.
Have I been talking over everybody?
Yes.
Yes. Stephen,
is this 45% of public schools had at least one teacher vacancy this fall?
Yes.
Unusual? Is this unusual?
Yes.
Okay. And why it is, I'm not really sure. I think some of it is that teachers had off so much time and got paid that they got used to it. Like, how many people on this show would like to take off for a year or two and just chill out and not really do anything? Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
So if you look at this article,
teachers
Stephen,
are lazy. You're saying that teachers are lazy?
A majority of schools said that too few candidates were applying for open teaching positions. About 1/3 said that job candidates felt that the salary and benefits were not enough.
And that's what it comes down to, Stacey. All this nonsense that people are saying. Look, bottom line, you need to pay more. And also, these teachers, the teachers are not lazy. I know a lot of teachers that have to pay for their own school supplies. They got to go in there. They got sometimes teachers pay out of their own pockets for some of their kids to go and eat lunch that day. So there's a lot of demand on teachers, not just to be teachers. They're not going in there and just teaching in the classroom. They're being aunts, uncles, parents in some cases. So being a teacher now is a lot more responsibility than just coming in there with a textbook and saying, hey, read this lesson plan. There's a lot more to it, and that's why the burnout is happening.
But Stacey, you haven't called on him. I haven't finished with my answer yet.
Well, we're finished with your answer now. Sorry,
I haven't finished. I haven't even answered your question yet.
We're out of time.
You got enough independent thinker. Just go think independently. Go think independently. You're not a victim, Stephen.
Okay.
No, I'm not a victim.
All right, then don't act like it.
All right.
Don't act like it. All right.
Let me say, my mother.
Todd, let me talk for you, Todd. Let me talk over you, Todd.
No, ma'am.
Stephen, man. See, teachers have to deal with bullies like that. And so you got to deal with bullies. You get burned out.
My mother was a teacher. My aunts were teachers. Stacy's mother was a teacher. Our families are teachers, long line of teachers. And so their pay is short. As a matter of fact, my mother left teaching and went to work for the post office.
Thank you, Todd. You can't talk all day.
Because the post office, strangely enough, paid more than a teacher's salary. So, Stephen, they do not get paid enough. Aguna was right. And so what our family wound up doing was buying children's lunch and giving children little gifts like pencils, paper, pens, that kind of a thing.
Then they should work for the post office.
Okay, so Aguna, we're out of time, but I need you to comment on sports first. World Cup, real quick, Aguna, and then the Eagles.
Hey, there were some great games today. I mean, Portugal destroyed Sweden, and Spain lost to Morocco. Now, I know people are like, who the hell are these? Look, Spain is a provincial powerhouse. They won back in 2010, and they played against Morocco, and Morocco is not even ranked in the top 20. And what happened was the Moroccan defense was so strong that they forced it to PKs and overtime and ended up winning. Spain didn't even make one PK. It's one of the biggest upsets in the field of 16 in World Cup history. So, I mean, you watch these games, and these people are playing for their notoriety in their country. And so, it just see the passion of it all. These countries shut down to watch it. So it's great things. I will say this. Can I say one thing about the Warnock-Herschel Walker race?
And
Warnock has this in the bag. My frat brother, he has it in the bag. If you look at what's going on right now,
a piece of garbage.
Shut up. The bottom line of it is Herschel Walker is so close right now, and 50% of Fulton County hasn't even reported yet. 50% of DeKalb County. So all the largest districts in the state haven't even halfway reported yet, and Herschel Walker is only above by a little bit in these rural counties. So it's going to be fine. I wish you had a better vocabulary than garbage and all
wanted to ask, why did Stephen want
think of vocabulary? Think of that.
Okay.
Why did Stephen want Walker to win?
Because Stephen can't say one thing about Walker's platform.
Aguna, we're out of time. Aguna,
he's a piece of garbage.
Excuse me.
Walker is a piece of garbage.
Look at the comment down the bottom. It says Paper Doll made a comment. It said Republicans, politicians, and voters don't care what kind of person is running. Walker, a person who is clearly intellectually unfit.
That's Joe Biden.
A warm Republican.
That's why he resonates with Stephen right there.
That's Joe Biden.
That's a comment from one of our.
That's Joe Biden.
He has to pivot. Talk about Walker.
I'm tired of you guys talking over me.
Let Stephen answer the question.
I want Aguna to talk about the Eagles.
Sure. Yeah, so the Eagles, of course, they don't get any respect. I was at the game.
What?
Lovely. They don't get any respect, right? It's interesting because ESPN put out a poll and they said that the Cowboys have a 50% chance of making it to the Super Bowl. The Eagles have a 30% chance, and then I think the Vikings have a 9% chance. But bottom line of it is, we're used to being the underdog. They're playing very good. I mean, they're beating people different ways. They're beating in the passing game. Their defense is stepping up. So they're having a very balanced attack, and they're attacking teams with their strengths and weaknesses, right? So Tennessee was a run-first team with Derrick Henry. He only had 30 yards. They stacked the box. They forced Tannehill to throw. They sacked him like 6 times. So they're playing really good ball at a time of year where it matters, when the playoffs, are coming. So we'll see. They do need to win the next 2 games. They play New York this weekend. That's going to be a big game. If they beat New York, they play Chicago. And so my gut says that the NFL is going to try some shenanigans and make us drop one of these next 2 so that
No way.
The December 24th game, this is my theory, that December 24th game in Dallas is going to be for the number 1 seed for the NFC East. And the only way that becomes real is if the Eagles have to lose at least once before we play Dallas. And that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're going to the Giants. We're going to Chicago. I've seen weird things happen in the NFL. So it's going to come down to these 2 teams. You just saw what happened with the 49ers. Garoppolo is out for the year. Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, is the quarterback.
What about talk real quickly about Russell Wilson?
Oh man, Russell. So I mean, what about him? He's become a liability. Again, they paid Russell Wilson $245 million to go to Denver.
That's a lot of money.
And he hasn't really delivered. So the one person you may not want to rule out of the playoffs is Aaron Rodgers. Okay, I know people are like, he was hurt and everything like that, but he won. They won this past weekend, and their road to the playoffs. I mean, if they win out, they still have a chance of making the playoffs. And I don't think the Giants are going to make the playoffs. I don't think the Giants are going to. I mean, hopefully they won't win this weekend.
Isn't he married to that singer?
Todd, please.
Okay, so let me move on. I think someone told me they wanted to make a comment. Real fast, Stephen, you want to make a comment about Twitter and Elon Musk, I think?
Elon Musk is right now, he's systematically dismantling the Democrat Party and everything they've done that's wrong. It's involved this country, and stay tuned, everybody, because Elon Musk is bringing out the truth against everything that the Democrat Party has done.
Like Elon Musk?
To ruin these elections, to hurt these elections.
Like Elon
and
Musk?
I love your smug little smiles and your googly little eyes, because when the truth comes out, you're going to be crying. All of y'all are going to be crying little tears. And the Democrat Party is going to be done.
Who hurt you?
All right,
Stephen?
thank you.
Who hurt you?
So to our first responders in our community, you make our lives livable.
Look at
to our women and men of the U.S. military for all that you do in sacrificing your
lives. You'll be all right, Stephen.
So that we are free to say whatever we choose on the show. We are forever indebted. On behalf of Aguna, the Nigerian Republican.
Warnock is going to win, by the way. It's a lock. Garbage.
Stephen, the independent thinker.
He is
Herschel Walker, by the way, is going to win.
Put some money on it. Put some money on it.
Keith, the constitutional conservative.
Herschel Walker wins, we lose.
And my cousin Todd.
Yeah, Todd. There you go.
Give him Todd.
Man. Hey, that better not be a double-breasted suit, Todd.
That's not double-breasted, it's single-breasted.
I'm Stacey Johnson.
You have 2 breasts.
What you have going to a prom?
I'm Stacey Johnson.
Who's your date?
I'm Stacey Johnson. Thank you for watching us. Check us out. Check us out.
Keith used to teach school, so his school is having a little prom.
Won't quit. Y'all won't quit. I can't even talk.
We're having too much fun. We miss each other.
Check us out on our new Instagram channel at Sporlitiks. Check us out on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Like and subscribe. Check us out on Stephanie Stallworth's The Flow Television Network. We'll see ya.
And check us out on Stephen and Keith's porn site. I mean,
good night.
Don't knock it till you see it.
That was ridiculous, Todd.
No.
I made a mistake. That was a slip of the tongue.
Oh, good God.
By the way, got news for you, Todd. The LAUSD, the report is out. About $70,000 a year is what the average teacher salary is, and $70,000. So that exceeds your $65,000. And then
It's just not enough money, Keith. It's not enough money.
Yeah,
they need to make $1 million a year. These teachers.
I know.
They need $1
You
million
think
a year.
$65,000 is enough money
They're
for
crying little
teaching?
babies.
Well, I'm just saying, in comparison, that's LAUSD. What about the rest?
That's
of
LA. I mean, that's not 75,000 in South Carolina.